Okie dokie, ho ho! Let's go!
Hey guys, it's Retrohead here and welcome back to another video. Today is a really special video as I'm doing a video all about one of my dad's collections, and that is his Sega Game Gear collection. The Sega Game Gear is one of his favourite consoles to collect for, and it has a really good collection of boxed consoles and also 16 complete and boxed games. As you will know, in my collection, my dad only collects for boxed, complete games. He doesn't have any unboxed games, and every game is complete with a manual. If you enjoyed the video, please like and please subscribe. But without further ado, let's get on with showing you this collection. So before I show you the pieces from his collection, I should probably tell you why the Game Gear is one of his favourite consoles to collect for. As a kid, he used to have a Game Gear. His brother had a Game Boy, he had a Game Gear, and he's always preferred the Game Gear. And he's recently, over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, got back into collecting Sega, and he really wanted to get all of his Game Gear games back from when he was a child. But he's also got lots more games to add to his collection, because he's got over 16 now, and there's some really good games here. But yeah, just a really fun, nostalgic console that he has great memories with, and one that he absolutely loves collecting for. If you haven't watched the channel before, you'll know I collect PlayStation and Nintendo, so anything PlayStation and Nintendo that you see is mine, and anything Sega that you see is my dad's. Now before the video starts, I just want you to bear in mind, I collect for Nintendo and PlayStation, and my dad collects for Sega. I know quite a bit about Sega, but I don't know anywhere near as much as I know about Nintendo. So if I do sound a little bit out of my comfort zone talking about Sega, that's probably because I am, so you'll just have to bear with me with this video. So the first piece of my dad's collection is this complete unboxed Sega Game Gear. This was a CEX purchase absolutely years ago, and as you can see the box isn't in too bad a condition. Bearing in mind this came out in 1990, so you can't expect it to be in really nice condition. But this box is absolutely massive, but the Game Gear, if you look at it, is like a really big console, especially compared to the Game Boy. As you know, it's a complete colour system, and it's really, really cool. Don't fear, every single item you see in this collection does have box protectors, so the console boxes, they all have box protectors, and every single game is in its box protector. I have took them out to show you on the video because the glare is too much for you to see, but don't fear, this is all kept in box protectors. Finding a complete unboxed Game Gear nowadays is a really, really tough task. We keep looking at like the really cool bundle copies they have, so like you can get the Sonic the Hedgehog one and stuff, but finding a complete unboxed Game Gear is so hard nowadays. That Game Gear was actually in its box and completely complete in box, but it does also have one unboxed one. This is the only unboxed item he has in his Game Gear collection. This one we used just to play. This is primarily to play. It's been recapped, so it's all ready to go. Now, like I said, this is the only unboxed thing he has, and this is just a really nice Game Gear. Bought from Last Level Games in Norwich, and it's been completely restored back to its former glory. And just holding the Game Gear compared to the original Game Boy, this is so much more of a comfortable system to hold. This is a really, really good gaming system that I wanted to do this video about because I think it's so underrated and more people need to talk about the Sega Game Gear. Next up, we have two more consoles to show you. Now, these are both Game Gear Micros. If you didn't know, these were Game Gears released just a few years ago, but exclusively to Japan. So these are really, really hard to find. And these each have 4 games downloaded onto them. So the first one is a black one. Now, I have already done a video about this, so I won't take this one out of the box. But this is a really, really nice little item. And when I say these are micro, these are really micro. But as you can see there, these have got just Japanese writing on, because these were Japanese exclusives. You would have had to get this imported if you wanted to get one in this country. Now, I will take the next one out of the box, as you've never seen this on YouTube before. This was a recent pickup of his, and it's absolutely awesome. And that is the light blue Game Gear Micro. This is absolutely awesome. I love the colour of this. Now, I will take this out of the box in a second, but when I say this is micro, these are unbelievably small. Here is the absolutely tiny instruction booklet, and this is all in Japanese. And just to show you the size comparison, this is an original Game Gear, and this is a Game Gear Micro. That is just so crazy. And don't forget, this has 4 games downloaded onto it, and it's this small. I'll just put it in front so you can see. How cool is that? These Game Gear Micros are absolutely awesome. Now, if you do see them out and about, I definitely suggest snapping them up. As like I say, these are exclusive to Japan, and I've only ever seen mine out and about once. The 2 that my dad's got were both ordered online. Before I show you the games, I have a few accessories to show you. Now, when I say he only collects complete in box, I really wasn't joking. All these accessories are complete in their boxes. So the first one is an official Sega Game Gear wide gear. And this is really handy for playing those games, especially for if you're sitting next to someone. You can see it much easier. And you may think it's a bit of a gimmick just having a magnifying glass on the top, but this actually really helps with seeing the games in much more clearer and bigger detail. Even if you can't find one in the box, I definitely recommend buying one of these if you enjoy playing the Game Gear. The next one is a Game Gear link cable. We haven't actually got round to using this yet, but we really should at some point. I have the Game Boy link cable, and it's actually a really cool accessory from back in the day. And the final one is a car adapter, so you can charge your Game Gear in the car on the road. This would just run off the cigarette lighter, and it's a really cool accessory. And as you probably know, the Sega Game Gear doesn't have the best battery life, so this is a really handy console to have if you're taking it on the road. And the first game I'm going to show you is, of course, Sonic the Hedgehog. Now this one actually has a really interesting story. This was ordered from CEX years and years and years ago now. It's in pretty good condition, not too bad at all. There's a little bit of a scuff there, but apart from that, it's fine. Now, we ordered this, and it didn't turn up for weeks and weeks and weeks. So we got in touch with CEX, and we got a completely full refund. And I reckon, sort of maybe 2 or 3 months later, this just turned up at the door. And we got in touch with CEX, and they just said, keep it. So this actually costs nothing. And it's a really nice condition copy. And that was just a really funny story that we got a free copy of Sonic the Hedgehog. The next game is Sonic the Hedgehog 2, again complete in box. This box has got a little bit of a rip on the front, which is a real shame, but it's not too bad at all. Now this is a really, really good Sonic game, not as good as the original in my opinion, but it's sort of had a bit of a graphical improvement, and it's a really, really solid game. And this still on the Game Gear is quite a cheap game. I think you can get a copy box for about 20 quid now. So I think this is a must-have in anyone's Game Gear collection. Next up, we have Sonic Chaos. Again, another really good Sonic game. I don't even know why I say that. All the Sonic the Hedgehog games are going to be really good. And this is a nice condition copy. And again, I'm going to say this again. Complete in box. All of the games are complete in box. He will not buy them if they're not complete in box. He's a bit fussy like that. Here we have Sonic Chaos, another good Sonic the Hedgehog game. One that I haven't played overly much. He's played this game much more than I have. But I can safely say this is a really, really solid game, even still today. And the next game is Columns. This game was a real pain to find because most Game Gears came bundled with this. But that came bundled with just the cartridge, not the box. So to find this in the box was like really difficult. I know in CEX you can pick this up for, I think it's literally £1 or maybe £2 for just the cartridge, but the box is much more expensive. So it's really nice to have this one boxed in the collection. This is kind of a bit of a Tetris clone, but I absolutely love this game and it's absolutely awesome. In my opinion, never going to be as good as Tetris, but I still think this is a really cool game, and if you haven't tried it, I definitely suggest you do so. If you've watched the channel for any amount of time, you'll know me and my dad both love our racing games, and this is one of the best Game Gear games in my opinion. And this is Outrun Europa in a really nice condition box. Like, this game is in absolutely lovely condition, and we have played this game a lot, and it is such a good Outrun game. But I think this is an absolutely awesome game, and for the Game Gear, I think this has got some absolutely brilliant graphics. So if you haven't tried this one yet, this is a must-play on your Sega Game Gear. The next game we have is Super Space Invaders. This is a bit of a Space Invaders port for the Game Gear, but it does have a few differences. And this is a really fun game. I absolutely love Space Invaders. It's an absolute arcade classic, and one that if you haven't tried, well, I don't even know why I'm saying this. You've definitely, if you're watching this video on some kind of system, you've definitely played Space Invaders. It's an absolute classic. Let me know in the comments down below, what is your favourite port of Space Invaders, and what console is it on? I'm always just going to prefer the 70s original, but let me know, is there a copy that you prefer more? Let me know in the comments. Next up we have a really nice condition game, and that is Cool Spot. I believe this one also got a Mega Drive release, but I absolutely love this game. This is a really good 90s platformer. This is one in my collection I'm trying to find on the SNES. And I have seen a couple, but they've had no manual, which has been real shame. But I'm really after this one for my collection, as I've played it on the Game Gear. And this is just such a nice chilled out platformer. Not too stressful, but just a nice chill out, sit down play. Next up, this game is probably one of my favourite puzzle games of all time, and that is Marble Madness. I primarily play this on the original NES, but I absolutely love this game. And I have played it on the Game Gear, and it looks great on the Game Gear. I don't know why, but I feel like this game really suits the Game Gear graphics. I think it looks absolutely awesome. This did also get a Master System release as well, which I have played, and it's great on there. But But for me, the best version will always be on the original Nintendo, but this game is still great on the original Game Gear, and if you haven't tried this one, this is a great game. Next up, we have a game that I don't actually think I've got round to playing on the Game Gear yet, and that is G-Lock. I think I've played this on the Master System. I've got a feeling I've played this on the Master System, but it was really, really good on there. It's a really, really good combat game. If you haven't tried this one, again, this one's at a really cheap price at the minute, and it's a really, really fun game. Quite a hectic, mad game, but one that if you haven't played yet, you should definitely give this one a go. And again, this is quite a common game, and also quite a cheap one, that you should definitely get your hands on if you can. And the next game is Super Monaco Grand Prix. This is a really, really good racing game, and this is one of those games that really shows the difference for me, personally, to the original Game Boy to the Sega Game Gear. If you look at the graphics for like an F1 game on the original Game Boy to one compared to this can run the game in full colour, better sound, and so much faster than the original Game Boy. This is just such a polar opposite to how the original Game Boy played games. And this is a really, really fun game to play on the Game Gear. One that I think holds up really, really well in today's standards. Next up, we have Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Me and my dad have had such fun playing this game. We have completed the whole thing. And I don't want to spoil anything too much, but it's really, really good. Quite a tricky game, but it didn't take us too long to complete it. And one that if you can find out and about, I definitely suggest picking this one up, as it's just such a fun game. And also, I love the artwork on this one. I think this looks really, really cool and very, very retro artwork. Absolutely love that. Next up, we have Wimbledon. Now, I don't know why, but me and my dad had such a good time playing this. And I can't really work out why we particularly had such a good time playing this one. But I've always been a bit of a sucker for tennis games, and I do play tennis in real life as well. So I think that's why we sort of enjoyed this one so much. And this is a really, really cheap game. And I don't really know why, but we found this so fun. So if you find this one out and about, I definitely suggest picking this one up. And again, like the last game, if you get a tennis game from today, the artwork is so boring, but just look at the artwork on that game. I think that is absolutely awesome, and another reason why I don't like modern games as much as retro. Now, I can't really say anything about the next game, World Class Leaderboard. This is a golf game, and we have never ever played this, and to be honest, we're probably not going to. I don't really like golf, and this does look quite boring, but we just found this really, really cheap. I think it was in the retro realm in Ipswich. At one point, but this was just too cheap to pass up for a complete Game Gear game in the box. Don't get me wrong, this probably isn't a bad game, it just doesn't look like a very exciting one to compare to all the others. Next up we have Olympic Gold, and this is a bit of a similar story to the Wimbledon games. I've always loved Olympic games. One of the first ever games I played on my Wii when I was really little was Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, and I just cannot get enough of Olympic games. I've got all the Mario and Sonic Olympic games, nearly. I've got like loads of them on the Xbox 360 and PS3 and stuff, and also a couple on the N64. And this was a really, really fun game. I just like how you get loads of different sports all in one game. And I know people don't really like sports titles, but I think they're really fun. And I really, really enjoyed this one. The next game is a football game, and I'm not massively into football games, but this one I found really good, and that is Ultimate Soccer. I think the reason I found this really good is I am not very good at football games at all. I just cannot get the hang of them. But I found the controls in this game really, really easy to get the hang of, which for me is a very good thing, as I'm terrible at football games. So if you're not great at football games and collect for the Sega Game Gear, I would definitely recommend this one for your collection. And the final game is a really, really awesome one. I've played this on the SNES, and it's just probably one of the best sports games of all time, and that is NBA Jam. This is just as good on the Game Gear as it is on the SNES. Obviously not quite as good graphically, but this game is so fun. I'm sure you've played some kind of version of NBA Jam, but if you can find a copy of NBA Jam on any console, including the Game Gear, it is such an awesome basketball game. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, please like, please subscribe, and I hope you really, really like my dad's Game Gear collection, as it is one that he's really working hard on trying to add more games to the collection. But as you probably know, the Game Gear is really, really tricky to find games for. So it's really hard to add them to the collection. But I think that's what he likes collecting about it. He likes the hunt and he likes it. He loves it when he finds one. It like takes ages to find one, but when you find one, it feels all the more exciting. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!